Hey everybody, what is up? Tominator here. So in this one I wanted to talk a little bit more about the 2018 Chicago Pro Show now that it's all wrapped up. So of course we're going to be speaking about the men's open division now. And Michael Lockett there on the right was your champion. Sergio Oliva Jr. on the left had to settle for runner-up. Now coming into this contest, I think a lot of people, and myself included, expected Sergio to take it just because he's kind of the bigger name of the two at the moment right now, and he had more momentum going into it. Plus Chicago's his hometown. But I guess Michael Lockett there had different plans because this guy showed up in tremendous shape. Might very well be his best overall package to date. And I can't say that definitively because I haven't followed his contest history that closely, but certainly his last couple of outings were disappointing. But yeah, I mean, I think he pulled it off with gusto. I think he deserved this one. So we're going to get into the comparisons in a moment. But just before we do that, fun fact for y'all is that apparently, believe it or not, he did not even diet for this contest. At least that's what he claimed in a post-show interview, because I guess his girlfriend was telling him that he looked so much bigger and fuller and still conditioned in the off season. And then when he would diet down for a show, he'd tend to come in smaller and flatter. So this time around, he said, you know what, screw all that diet stuff. I don't need that. I'm just going to eat whatever I feel like and drop water the night before and see how it works out. Well, I guess it worked out pretty damn well for him. I think he's found his formula going forward because this is just ridiculous to be able to have striated glutes like this. He had really tight conditioning and not diet. I mean, that's pretty much unheard of, especially in this day and age where conditioning is so important. So this guy's metabolism must be absolutely through the roof. I mean, that's just insane genetics to be able to do something like that. That said, I'd be willing to bet that his diet in general is pretty strict and clean because there's no way this guy's chowing down on buckets of KFC and stuff and getting ripped like this. You can bet your ass on that. But yeah, that said, he wasn't without his flaws because, as we can see here, he still has that gyno, unfortunately. I know he had the surgery a while ago to get this corrected, but it doesn't look like it fully eliminated the problem because we can see right here the nipples looking puffy, looking large and pointy, and just, it's not good. It's a real blemish on an otherwise very solid physique. So that's unfortunate, and I do hope that at some point in the future he can really just get rid of this once and for all. But yeah, let's jump into some comparisons now. So I'm really just going to focus on the top two here, okay? So Sergio Oliva Jr., Michael Lockett. Now, for all that everybody's been making such a big deal about Lockett's outstanding conditioning and saying that he was just so much better than anybody else, from what I've seen, I don't think that that's really true or fair to say because I think, at least in certain shots, like from the front and from the side and stuff, I think Sergio is actually more defined. I mean, look at his upper body here, and like look at the arms especially. I mean, they're clearly harder and more defined than Lockett's, and I think through the rest of his midsection and torso, that holds true as well. Sergio Oliva Jr. also has better quadriceps than Lockett. That's Michael Lockett's other major weakness is the quads. So we can see here, not only are they not that wide and not that neatly separated, and they kind of have an odd shape to them, and they're not even that symmetrical. You can see the one on the right. If you look closely at the outer head, it's not as big as the one on the left. So he's got a little bit of an asymmetry going on there. I also think his calves, while they're very big and bulky, they definitely have a lot of mass. They're very high, and I think that looks a little funny, especially from the front. From the rear, it's not as bad of a look, but I think in this one right here, it kind of throws off his flow in the lower body. So that could be just personal nitpicking on my part, but I think that most people would agree that Sergio's legs are better than Lockett's overall. Upstairs, however, I mean, Sergio's not perfect himself. There's one thing that I think he really needs to work on, and that is to bring up his biceps, because in terms of the biceps, he's getting eclipsed by everybody here in this frame right now. And, I mean, his triceps are pretty decent. They've got, long muscle bellies, that nice full sweep, just like his father had back in the day. Not to the same extent, but same kind of look, right? The forearms are pretty good. He's got those tiny joints. You can see how small his wrists are. He's got a nice taper, but the biceps are just too small and flat, and I think he can really stand to bring those up. In the front lat spread, here, this one's interesting too. Once again, I would give the edge to Sergio in the lower body, of course. But upstairs, I would go with Lockett because I think that while they're very similar in terms of the V taper, everywhere else Lockett's better. I mean, his shoulders are definitely bigger and better. Same with the pecs. Gyno or no gyno, And for what it's worth, the gyno in certain shots like this is not even noticeable, so I don't think it hurt him all that much. It was certainly worse in previous shows like the 2017 Mr. Olympia. And also the arms are bigger once again, so I think overall I would probably go with Lockett on this one. But it's definitely close. I think it's actually pretty close from the front and from the side as well. As we can see here in the side chest, I think Sergio's holding his own pretty well. In fact, if I'm going to be honest, just judging from this one picture right here, and it's not a great look, admittedly, because it's a little zoomed out and we can't catch those finer details as much, but this is the best one I could find. But based on this one isolated look right here, I would probably gravitate towards Sergio because I think his physique is, again, it could just be the coloring, but it just has kind of a harder look to it to my eyes than Lockett's. But otherwise, they're very similar here in terms of the size, in terms of the structure and the proportions and everything. They're almost like clones in this pose, at least in this picture right here. Same with the side tricep. It's kind of another toss-up. You could go either way on this one. I personally like the way that Sergio's hitting it a little bit more. I think with the trailing foot like that, it adds a little bit of personality and a little bit of flair that Michael Lockett's posing is just kind of lacking. Like his posing is just very conventional. It's very ordinary. It doesn't do anything to kind of stand out and draw your attention. Whereas Sergio is the complete opposite. So this pose right here is kind of a microcosm of these two guys' different posing styles, because if you watch their routines, Michael Lockett's just very by the books, very just, I don't know, it's extremely forgettable is how I would say it. I'm not going to say it's bad posing, but he just doesn't do anything very interesting. Whereas Sergio, it's nothing but that. It's just tons of all this different sort of stuff, all this like artistic and non-compulsory posing, and it's very energetic. He's certainly very animated on stage. It almost reminds me of something like what Kai Greene would do. But the problem is that he doesn't have the grace of a Kai Greene, okay? Because his transitions are very shoddy. It's like he was kind of rushing to get from pose to pose. It's almost as though he was trying to cram in too many poses into a short posing routine. And as a result, he just didn't really pull it off, I think, as well as he could have. I think going forward, he needs to practice his posing more. He needs to slow it down and work on being smoother and everything. And I think that'll go a long ways for him. But he definitely, props to him for attempting what he did. If you go watch his routine, it's definitely interesting. And he does have a certain charisma on stage just by his energy and how emotional he seems to be. But yeah, he didn't quite pull it off in my eyes. But anyway, moving on. When they turn around, I think this is where things definitely go downhill for Sergio Oliva Jr. because I think Lockett is just much better from the back. He's got way more thickness through the traps and everything. His glutes are just infinitely better. And when they get into the back double bicep here, I think it's pretty much just lights out, game over for Sergio. Because look at all the extra thickness through Lockett's back, through the upper back especially. Neither one of their lower backs is that good. But through the upper back and through the shoulders, through the arms, I think Lockett has him handily beat. The glutes go without saying once again. The only potential redeeming factor you might say in Sergio's defense here is that his V-taper looks a little bit better, but I think that's mostly because he's angling towards the camera more. Because when we see them in this shot here, now the tapers look pretty much identical, but Lockett just has such an advantage in terms of the muscularity, in terms of the size and the thickness and everything, once again through the upper back and the shoulders and arms, but also downstairs through the glutes and the calves. And even the hamstrings, I think, are better. So I think this one is pretty much a blowout. In the rear lat spread, though, this one is closer, definitely. I think that, once again, Lockett's got more thickness, more detail through the back. Lower body's probably better. But in terms of the V-taper now, I think Sergio's right on par with him, if not even a little better. So you could perhaps make an argument for Sergio, but I would still go with Lockett on this one. In the ab and thigh, we can see Sergio's definite advantage through the quadriceps, though, now, because Lockett's just really look mediocre, if that. I mean, they're barely passable at this level. His upper body, though, is very good. Unfortunately, though, that gyno is rearing its ugly head again, as we can see the nipples looking a little bit too big and puffy. So that's very unfortunate, because otherwise his proportions are just ridiculous. I mean, look at the size of his arms, his shoulders, his lats compared to that tiny little waist. It's just an incredible structure that he has. He's got just fantastic genetics, so it's too bad that it's marred by that one flaw. But Yeah, I don't know on this one, guys. On the ab and thigh, it really depends what you're paying more attention to. If it's the lower body that you waver more favor that you weigh more heavily, then it's got to go to Sergio. If it's the tight midsection, the overall flow and everything, and the abs, then it's got to go to Lockett. So take your pick. In the most muscular, this is where Sergio really falters, though. I mean, he's just getting dwarfed out there. He looks very small and narrow, especially standing next to a wider guy like Justin Rodriguez and the crab most muscular. I really think that he could stand to put on like 10 pounds of solid muscle in his upper body alone just to kind of balance out his physique a little bit more in poses like this so he doesn't look like he's getting overwhelmed by everybody. Because right now he looks, I don't know, it's too compact and he almost looks lower body dominant, like he's out of proportion a little bit. Whereas Lockett, I think, looks better. He looks more balanced and he looks definitely much fuller and more impressive in the upper body, that's for sure. So I think that Lockett did deserve this one, in spite of the traces of gyno, which was definitely there, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it's been in the past, and I don't think it was enough to hold him back or prevent him from winning. So I think that obviously the judges saw it that way as well. And for the record, they voted him unanimously as the winner. He had first places across the board, whereas Sergio Oliva Jr. had second place across the board, and Justin Rodriguez was third across the board. So it was definitely not much controversy there on the judging panel. I'm not sure how controversial this outcome is to the rest of us, so you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because I'd be curious to hear what your guys' opinions on this one are. But that's just my stance and my take on this whole thing. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, I'm the Tominator, signing off, and
I'll be back.